Where's everybody at? Is it Friday night party night? They forgot about the real party is here, damn it.
Yep. And that's the whole thing about these Zooms that instills that frustration in me, because and that's why it's important when these Zooms start up and people like yourself and King show up. That's like he said the other day, I'm a brother for life, because those are the ones that are showing it. Friday night comes around and all of a sudden the Zoom meeting's 2 or 3 people. We know who our true brothers are. So just keep that in mind.
I mean, for me, it's real exciting. This is the first breakthrough we've ever really had. Everything else has been false promises. You know it. And the post office is the port of, we're exiting and operating in the postal system. And so that really is a key. Okay. Nobody else has had this approach really. And also we're just a number. So we get discharged and our person is, our new entity is out here doing what it needs to do. And it's all under, because I talked to the head guy at Secretary of State, the UCC division 10 years ago. And he told me that everything that the county's looking at, I thought they were under fiduciary duty to us when I paid a tax or something. He said, no, that's considered a pledge, is how they're looking at that, is you're pledging everything that you do to them. And that's why they don't have no duty to you for that fact, is they're looking at everything's a pledge. And number two, everybody's considered a U.S. citizen until you break that and become something else. Okay. Yep. And I have been trying for the last 10 years to break that U.S. citizen, and everywhere I go, they will not let me do it.
I already did. It's internationally recognized. I'm Keith Orland Little under Keith Orland Little Faith-Based Union.
Okay. When you go faith-based union, does that kill the U.S. citizen then?
First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. I've established the foundational element of a faith-based union, which by their synonymous language usage is a religion. It's a freedom of association.
Okay. And that's the thing. I don't want to say church, because here's the thing. When you say church, all of a sudden they put you into that category that you must have a building, you must follow this protocol. And here in Tennessee, you have to go to the comptroller of currency to get an exemption number. And, I don't want to have to bow down to anyone to get an exemption number. I'm already exempt, darn it.
I show a symbol. See, we can go beyond the name, address, and number by using a symbol, a mark. If we read the scripture, we see the scripture describes a mark that is then denoted by a number and a name.
Okay.
We're going above the name, address, and the use of a number in lieu of the name and address, and using a mark above and superior to the name, number, and address.
Okay. I know you're right. And here's why I'm going to confirm what you just said. If I go get a patent, it's considered a mark. Okay. If I go and get a service mark, trademark of my name, that's also considered a mark. So each one of them in their world is considered a mark. Was you aware of that?
Yes. And here I'll show you.
You just confirmed what they're saying. So we need a mark and that's our mark. And it's a little bit like our thumbprint. That's a unique mark right there. That's a signature.
Well, this is the mark they're looking for. And I'll show you. It's right in the law of land warfare. Article 46. I believe they've changed. I believe the newer one, it's actually Article 58. This is an older version. And I think in the newer one, it's Article 58. And it says treaty provision. We're talking about the buildings to be spared, buildings and areas to be protected. Says a treaty provision, we're talking about the Treaty of Bern now and the Vienna Conventions. It is the duty of the inhabitants to indicate such monuments, edifices, or places by visible signs, which shall consist of a large, stiff rectangular panel divided diagonally into two colored triangular portions, the upper portion black, the lower portion white. The foregoing rule adopted. Again, I always talk about adopting. We got to adopt the same thing then. Let them know we recognize the mutual agreement. This is a special place. This is a special area. It is not to be entered. It is not properly entered into your documentation and therefore needs to be withdrawn. And this is how we do it. In this convention, for Geneva Conventions, for naval warfare, may be adopted for protecting buildings under bombardment in land warfare. Use of foregoing for military purposes. Their commercial purposes cannot be used because that's the only purpose they have for militaries, to sustain the military of the United States. The besieging forces, and this is done by a standing army, because the martial law chiefly affects the police and the collection of revenue and taxes, Article 10 of the Libra Code. The besieging forces are not required to observe the signs indicating inviolability of buildings that are known to be used for military purposes, such as quarters, warehouses, observation posts, or signal installations. So as long as you are using that diagonal sign, denoting that you are not a military purpose area, and are not carrying weapons and are operating and acting entirely peaceful. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. They will come in with their military forces if they see you with weapons. I assure you, because you're serving two masters. You're proving that you're supposedly peaceful, and yet you're carrying weapons. You're delusional. You're insane. They have this in on and for the record. It is clinically proven through many trials. Comprehend the language I am using, people. Very succinct and blunt and true. Anybody has any problems with it, please show me that I'm wrong, and I will be the first one to step up and admit it. But I believe that every word I'm using here is true. Having said that, when we think about this naval force and the military warfare tactics and everything, we have to realize it's the international forum. And when we talk about the limits of the public trust doctrine, that is to an international forum. We have to quit believing that it's an international forum in regards to the United States or United States of America or the nationals of American soil or this or that. We have to realize that too is an international forum, public trust. So in that, they try to pose the limits of the public trust doctrine. And it says, does the public trust doctrine apply to wildlife conservation? You know, Jerry Lewis or whatever is that comedian with the white hair. He says, I'm a wild and crazy guy. By definition, I am wildlife. You can't define me any other way without being more pure and true than wildlife. Just like any other wildlife, I am the same. Among the many ambitions for a revived and expanded public trust doctrine has been a call for its application to wildlife and wildlife habitat. Inhabitant or habitat. Two distinct different terms. A 2010 report published by the Wildlife Society titled The Public Trust Doctrine. Titled, it's a commercial purpose. Anything that is titled has a commercial purpose. Comprehend this. The public trust doctrine implications, it's an implied commercial purpose. Therefore, it's an implied contract. For wildlife management and conservation, and anytime you need management as part of wildlife, you have just contracted by an implied contract for part of the public trust doctrine. And conservation with service in the United States and Canada is illustrative. Ill sounds like a sickness. was a very distinct definition of the Hebrew root of sick. It comes from la, la, lako cha or something like that. But it means to become sick, which also is a reference to, in the ambiguous form, to become weak or to become wounded. That sounds like a defendant. I heed people to take heed of the words. The first are terms. The root here is ill. It is ill. And then you have us, trative. You have 3 suffixes. The first sentence asserts the public trust doctrine with its origin in Roman law is essential element of North American wildlife law. However, that Roman civil law got its public trust doctrine through its observation in order to conserve its own society by mimicking nature. We don't learn anything from the scriptures or the written legislated words, people. We actually learn things from our observance. We only remember things that are written. And therefore, the things that are written and we read, we have to take a deeper comprehension and do our own further research to truly know and follow up through experience what becomes wisdom. Is an essential element of the North American wildlife law. I want to go down here. It says the public trust doctrine has its origins in English law. Wait a minute. Wait, what? With its origins in Roman civil law. Did they just contradict themselves on the record here in this article? So now we have to pose that question. What is the true origin? Is it Roman? Is it English? Or is it, as I posed, natural? We have to first observe it from somebody somewhere else. And there again, I reinforce that maxim: what is done is what ought to be done. There is nothing new under the sun. We didn't create it. We observed it from somewhere else, and we're just imitating it in likeness and image. That itself is creation. So, and was later applied, applicants. Everybody it applies to are applicants, because that's what it applies to. In the North American colonies, as well as part of the common law by the individual states after the American Revolution. Historically, the public trust doctrine guaranteed a public right to commercial navigation. And navigation and fishing on navigable waters. Now remember how I pointed out to you the inconsistency in their own code 7, agriculture, and persons eligible for real estate loans are ranchers and farmers. When we look up rancher, we can't find a definition specifically for ranch, but we find it in range. And when we look further in regards to planting, it regards egg processing. So their ranch is all misconstrued because they're actually processing eggs in places known as buildings, while everybody thinks they're cultivating corn. And in cultivating corn, they're planting corn. But in planting corn, the definition says plant is the processing of eggs. So we show their inconsistency that they're babbling, first and foremost, in their codes. And then we show that the original sense is that we are to be stewards of the land. We are to replenish it. for our own prosperity and abundance, for our future generations, the legacy heirs of his immutable promise of asking and seeking his counsel so that we can receive that abundance to begin with. And that's all it takes. It's freely given, so we can then give freely. And this is the knowledge. We're supposed to give the knowledge in all aspects. And that's all we're doing is teaching them the errors of their inconsistencies. I guarantee you, every real estate broker that I've talked to and showed this is just dumbfounded. Now, I guarantee you, brought out in the open in any court, they will be just as stupefied. It proves their own incompetence to know the law because it's literally legislated in this manner that is just complete babble. And we can show them this. How can you be a farmer on land with not one drop of water with any fish in it if your intent for that real estate loan was to be specifically a fish farmer and use fishing on navigable waters? So what they've done through that eligible persons for real estate loans through the agriculture, which is where all commodities are derived, and that's the Securities Exchange Commission, which every signature is deriving from some kind of commodity through an allotment, and that allotment is tobacco on dry land for a real estate loan intended to be fish farming. I don't get it. How is that? Because they're using a public right to commercially navigate. Say what?
Supposed to fish mean people.
Fisher of men. Knowledge is what we use to be fishers of men. Commerce is what we use to fish for men by hook, line, and sinker, using the bait of profit and gain. Over the past few decades, courts in several states have expanded the doctrine beyond its historical reach. But those expansions have been limited to public uses of water. Public, commercial uses of water.
Hang on. If we're using it for just to have fun, swimming around, that's not commercial, is it?
Correct. So it has to be commercial use of water. However, I pose again that public trust doctrine stems from the international forum because of the naval enforcement. They are the authority of the uses of water, both commercial and in peace. Freedom of transit. Guarantee you, any vessel on navigable waters sees somebody out in the ocean that needs help, and there is room on board. And this is where we get room and board on land for transitional housing. I assure you, people, it's all been converted. As long as there's room and board, the voyage is free. It's known as freedom of transit, the looking out for the health and welfare of another life. That's all it takes. And obviously, somebody's out in the navigable waters in some kind of small craft, a float tube of some sort, and is waving at you in this big, huge vessel, and you have room on board. You have to give him responsible to one another and to God, because he's the one that gave you the breath of life by being born of the water. And he formed you of the dust of the ground. This is your trial by fire in life.
Yeah, but aren't we exempt from this since we're not commercial in any way?
No, you want to use it to your advantage and express the difference.
Okay.
Quit going that way. Quit fighting the system right. Recognize that the guy out in the water, in a float tube needs help. He's the one that has existence of life. priority, whether he's on land or on water. Either way, period. And it operates on land just as it does on water. Who says that because I'm here and I'm using this vessel, that I'm subject to your larger vessel that claims you're going to save this person that's sabotaging his own life because he won't follow our rules and regulations? You can't do that. You can't enforce your community care on somebody who obviously doesn't need it through commercial regulations. It's like the doctor going down the road. He's off work, but he's got a medical license, and all of a sudden he comes upon this car accident. Now, when he gets out and he gives assistance, is he under license? Now, if he's under license and somebody comes into the hospital and he needs his assistance, can he demand commercial performance from the guy who needs his assistance? That's the fallacy. They're exclaiming we need their assistance of licensure. We need to have that license on that car. We need to have a driver's license. No, we don't. Show me your requirement. Every requirement depends upon an oath that certifies something. I never gave such oath, period. This is why we go to the International Forum, and I'm going to show you. I spoke about this earlier on my contact page. You see all kinds of information. Gives you a bunch of case law on my other sites and stuff, but right here it tells you check out our brother Derek Gonzalez, his YouTube, and his private site here, Self-Governance. You can subscribe to him for $17 a month. Now, I'm not advertising for him. I just posted a note so you would know if you go to that site, he's going to charge you $17 a month. I'm not advertising. I'm just placing truth in, on, and for the record. Not advertisement. I'm not operating commercially on a .art site, period. Okay? In that, down at the bottom of every page, like I've stated, is my patent expression of the trust. And in that trust, he is noted as a beneficiary legacy heir of his will. He is a member of my association merely by association of me putting him on the site. And if he wants to take advantage of that, so be it. Doesn't take a signature. It merely takes association of some form of agreement. Now, if we do it peacefully, that is the highest form of agreement. And this is Sun Tzu, Art of War. To defeat one's opponent without fighting is of supreme excellence. In that, I want to switch gears now because I want to show you where that supreme excellence comes from. You know, we're talking about origin of their words and everything. And the Hebrew alphabet is where our origins come from, folks. This is an ox head, and it's merely the A upside down. And that's all they did was they took everything, turned it around, and turned it upside down. Basically, in a basic sense, most of your shit is all backwards and upside down. Think about it that way. At least try to think about it that way, and you might see things turning around for yourself. It says strong, power, leader, and it is the first, the alpha. Then we have this little sign here, and it stands for tent, floor plan. Floor plan. Does that sound like his immutable promise to seek counsel in him, and he will give you full armor in Mother Earth because he created Mother Earth and that's his wife, and he gave you that immutable promise that she will take care of you just as well as she takes care of the smallest creature, so long as you follow his way. Honor thy father, honor thy mother, and love thy neighbor as thyself. That's all it takes. Alpha, beta. L is foot, gather, walk, carry. And this is where we get Congress, walk together. That's the marriage, the coupling of two together. The alpha, the mother, the father, the wife. Yeah. We're not supposed to honor the earthly father, folks, for there is but one Father which art in heaven. Then we have tent, door, movement, hang. This is your literal ability to make conscious decisions to move from one place to the other, no matter what door is there. Again, his full armor. He creates all things. So every door is his creation. Man with arms raised. And if you seek that immutable promise and realize he's the one that gave you the breath of life and you observe that life, he's going to give you that answer. It says so right there. In their own interpretation. Why is the tent peg? This is Jesus as he hung on the cross. And the pegs were the nails. 1, 2, 3 of them. And they stood for 666. Notice the tent peg is the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Matok is the plow, it's the food, the cut, the weapon, the nourishment. As we tender the earth, we cut the soil up so the seeds can find its place and grow forth and be there when we travel back and see that again next season. This is why we herd animals as shepherds, so their hooves too can break up the soil, so they don't roam in one spot and tear up the entire soil. They create a path that can be overgrown and nature can take its course again. And next time, they don't take the exact same path. They just go north and south. That's all it takes. Back and forth, back and forth. It's a polarity, it's a balance, it's a scale up and down, every sense in every direction. And he gives you that motion to gather, walk, and carry. Then we have tent wall, outside, divide, half. The basket is what surrounds, contains the mud, the ground, the soil. And remember, people, when Satan went up to God and said, well, I'm going to create my own demons, and he reached down to the soil of the earth and grabbed a handful as if though he intended to make his creatures out of the soil that God created. God said, you got to make your own floor plan. You got to make your own devices. And even true today in this world that we're caught up in with all this, you have to make your own remedy. I can't do it for you. The best way to make your own remedy is to get rid of all the confusion, go back to the simplicities of all languages. Get rid of all the bullshit. Work, throw, worship, hand and arm. It's the only way you're going to do it. No matter where you travel, you still have to do the good works. And it's the good works that count. The actions speak louder than words. So if you can't coin your words, purse your lips and let your actions speak for the honor. Because an open palm of hand is to allow and tame. And this is why we see this. You're asking for his guidance to tame your emotions so you can think logically and reason to use the words in your heart, the simple words, not with all this confusion of knowledge that we got from the fruits of the tree of knowledge. Shepherd's staff is to teach, yoke, toward, bind. And that's all I'm doing. You know, if you want hook, line, and sinker, the hook is the staff, the line is my arm, and the sinker is that We're going to float up to him. We're not going to sink in this quagmire of bullshit anymore, because our heart is supposed to be as light as a feather. So we're going to get rid of all that bullshit. In this symbol here, we see the M and the W, man and woman, and all life stems from water. Like I said, we are born of the water. That is the water baptism. We already have that. I fear not, for I have been redeemed. I have called thee by name. That's the baptism by water. The baptism by spirit is when he breathed the breath of life into the nostrils, and I was able to breathe, and man became a living soul. I wasn't a child. I was a man that became a living soul at that point in time. Since that time, this man has been living a trial by fire. That is my baptism in earth. And that's all I'm doing here. That's my transition through here, is the baptism by fire. I've already been baptized by water. I've already been baptized by the Spirit, and now I'm being baptized by the Spirit, by fire of my own trials. And like I said, 93 of them, 93 of them on the state of Iowa alone. I've got others in other states, not quite so many. I wasn't there so long, but I guarantee you, ain't been in any in almost 6 years now. I think I've been baptized by fire. I hope. I pray. If not, I still ask for the providence of his grace, because I'm not going to stand down. He's my guide. He protects me, and I shall not waver. That's as simple as it gets. Sprouting seed, continue, heir, son. I will continue be the heir of his son, Christ in Eucharist, and speak in his way. Because again, if I can't write it down and prove it to be true, I'm not going to write it down. I'm just going to act upon my best instincts. That's all I can do. And with that, I yield. I just wanted to show you this. I'm going to post a picture of it. It'll have to be in the comment section when I post the video. So look for it there. And you can look this stuff up online. You're going to find a lot of different sources, but this is the most accurate one I could find as far as the research I've done. Like I said, there's several out there, so you have to compare them. And this is the most accurate one I could. And this, real quick before I do, I want to show you the vowels: ah, e, oo, e. This is F. This is E, not I. E. E before I. E before I. O. So we see the U is OOH, which is ooh, just like E is not E, it's E, and E is E. This would not be U, this would be ooh. And over here we have ooh, chant peg. Same thing, add, secure, ooh, as in hook. Anyway, open board. Basically, we're talking about simplifying everybody's the terms and conditions everybody's using. And I'll finish off with this: political subdivision. We've got two prefixes there. Sub di is the definitive form of deity. Sub-God vision. Basically, that's what your political subdivision. And it all stems from religious division tactics. Come out of the religion and gain your spirituality. With that, I yield.
Yesterday, we were talking about I thought you was going to go into the diplomatic status for us, how they obtain their diplomatic immunity for that term. Because we was doing something at the end, we were talking about.
Well, the diplomatic security, as you said, was diplomatic immunity, and we're not immune. We're immutable. immutable promise to seek his counsel under his full armor, and that is superior to the diplomatic security, period. And that is where they get their origins, is that there are certain people that aren't operating commercially. And if they're not operating commercially and they're just on tour.
Right. Now, I was looking at the international organizations under that. If they were saying if you file as an international organization, you you could have that foreign person status. You can be immune, right, to the commercial jurisdiction. But
that's what I've already established. I've just got to state it more purposely. So that's the acceding to the Treaty of Berne and their agreements and stuff, and saying, yeah, absolutely, but I'm not operating commercially.
so
And that's why I say I started at the top level, international level, with a .art. So it's not commercial, and I've already expressed the trust, and now it's just a matter of acceding to their instrumentalities, and I can merely do that by copying them and posting them on my site and rewriting them and asking them, by directing them to my site, to qualify it as an approved accession. And that way it's noted on and for the international record. If I get their approval right there on my site, it would be merely by asking them to approve it. And then if they don't respond, it is approval. They have to be able to disqualify it if it's not qualified to remain in the public domain. I'm just going to let everything trickle down. Use their documents in the electronic forum. That's proving intent to sign a document. I'm ready to sign it if you are. I think I perfected or improved it. Yours had a couple gaps in it. And according to the law of continuity and completion, we got to fill in them gaps so the circle's complete.
So can we communicate with
I'm in a Zoom meeting. Could I call you back in about 3-4 minutes? We're about to get up out of here. I gotta wait till my girl come back. See when.
Go ahead, brother.
So Keith, can we communicate through the website to these knuckleheads? Is that what you're saying? And that way we're indirectly communicating with them and they'll recognize us as universal law?
Correct. It's already in the public domain, international forum. And if they can't prove by the international forum that they have a right to remove it, they don't. I'm the originator of content. And if I'm the originator of content and I'm not using it commercially and the content is coming from the public domain, how can they remove it from the public domain? They can't. They can only remove me from the public domain. Violation of law.
Right. And you're not there. Only a number is there.
Correct. They're not allowing myself proper access to the same public forum as the public, no matter how they call it. That's what Facebook is doing when they tell people they violated their community standards. Bullshit. You're operating as a social platform, and just because you have commercial contracts with advertisers and buyers and sellers doesn't mean everybody on Facebook is a buyer or a seller. We are end users to a free agreement.
Yeah, but here's how they're getting you. You know, when you agree to the terms, there's a lot of floating terms, okay, you know, that
right,
they're
but
applying.
Those have to be comprehensible.
Yeah,
well, they're not.
I agree, but that I'm just telling you, they're trying to hoodwink you that way.
Right. That's why I post my caveat now. Anyway, we're about out of time. If anybody wants to come back, let me know and I will. But it's Friday night, and I already know most people aren't around, but I know you guys are here, so
I want to come back.
all right. So take